Hey everybody, we are back. This is Startup Brothers, and this is the big 2-0. We took a little break, but decided we need to get back onto this because people have asked, and we have a lot to talk about. I'm Trace Cohen. This is
Maxwell Cohen, and there's almost too much to talk.
Yes. In minutes, I don't know if we'll cover everything, but probably the hottest topic right now, which you have a lot of insight on, is tariffs. Can you just kind of just
Ah,
explain them? What actually is a tariff? I'm in tech and startups. It affects a few of mine, but I'm not in the CPG, direct-to-consumer logistics world.
yes, when you start a business, you want to, and it's a product-based business, and you manufacture overseas, you figure out what your HTS code is, your harmonized tariff code. That code is designated by some World Trade Organization that says your products are tariffed at this amount. There's a few different types of tariffs, but why do tariffs exist? From my understanding, when the tariff is a big number, they're called protectionist tariffs. It's a national security issue, or it's something that your country makes that you don't want somebody else to undercut if they have a surplus of product. So just like I was looking the other day, Canada has a 300% tariff on our eggs and dairy in America, just your neighbor. And so I looked into it. Why? That sounds like a giant number. Since the Canadian government sort of regulates how much production can be created in their country, and it's based off of, supply and demand, and they don't want to create too much to have a surplus, so they kind of balance it out. So the moral of that story is if your neighbor has a surplus of eggs, you don't want them to liquidate them in your country, hurting your domestic business. So that's one side.
And then if we flood their market, it will hurt them because they can't sell at our price.
You got it. So the 300% markup is, their neighbor, they're below them, seems to always have a surplus of eggs and dairy. So instead of us flooding their market, they allow, their domestic, manufacturers or producers to have at least a leg up. So my tariffs for my products are 11.4%. That is for mattress protectors, essentially. That's what we go under. That's how we import it. I pay $10,000 for product in China. That's the cost of goods to manufacture my products. And that 11 point, imagine to bring it into the United States. So I put it on a shipping container. It takes about 30 days to get here. But the second it gets here, and this is why it's so hard, at least when it comes to the cost of goods, you can negotiate the terms. You ever hear of net 30 or 50% down? And those allow me to at least have the cash flow, which is the most important thing in business, be
Yep.
sustainable, and at least have some sort of forecasting based off of cash flow. But when it comes down to tariffs, this is the hardest part of it all. There's no layaway. The second it hits US ports, it goes through customs. Essentially, they're seeing what's in the container, see if there's anything suspicious. And the only way to get it past customs after they okay it is to pay the tariff. So, the tariff went from $1,140 to, I think as of today, it's 200 some odd percent. So imagine going from 1,100 up to $15,000 of money that can't be net, can't be layaway, payment terms. I have to pay it now
And that's
before
when
it.
it gets to the port. So it's already produced in China at a factory. It's
Yeah.
shipped on a boat, one of those massive boats with the containers. It hits the port. They scan it and say, beep, bop, boop, you owe this much more now. Otherwise, you
Yes.
can't have your product.
Well, you can't bring it into the U.S. and I don't actually don't know what happens if you default on it. I've never been there, but I could
Right.
only
Most people
imagine.
haven't because there hasn't been a tariff war. They know what the tariffs are and they don't change. They haven't really changed, maybe a few percentage points.
Well, so the truth is, the last administration this guy was in did increase the tariffs by 30%, depending on the product. My product, ironically, didn't get hit, so I was very happy about that. So there has been some complications when it comes to these things. It has moved depending on the tweet of the
Right.
day. But the moral of the story is, I was used to paying, let's round up to $1,200. Now I have to pay $15,000, and the first thing I'm doing, even with the inventory I have on hand that doesn't have those substantial tariffs on it, I'm increasing the price by 15% across the board to my customers.
You have that, and I think that's a word called inflation, where you have to pass the price, the increase in some type of margin onto your customer. And look, as an investor, I've heard the word tariffs. I have a few, like you, CPG investments that use China, India, Bangladesh for their manufacturing. It's cheaper labor. They have all the factories, they have the logistics. It works. I guess the mentality behind this is maybe the tariffs are too much. We want to onshore, we want to bring manufacturing jobs back to the US. And so if we keep increasing tariffs, the whole idea, regardless of politics, is to get a better deal for you and all of these others. Because I'm getting updates from potential investments, even some of ours, that they have to move manufacturing day to day. Right. You have to have all their product in transit, but when it comes, it's a different price than what they thought it was going to be. So it affects their margins. And you were on Shark Tank. So I know a lot of them are CPG based. Definitely hearing a lot of stories that as a tech investor, software isn't generally affected by this. The stocks have gone down, but that's more just fear and uncertainty and volatility in the markets. But tariffs, maybe for all these AI companies, is chips. That's all we talk about. All these chips, Taiwan, NVIDIA, SMCI, AMD, to power all of our companies. So now every week we become an expert in something new. So now we're all international tariff experts when it comes to the fabrication of chips.
Well, the last administration put a 100% tariff on semiconductors, EV vehicles, PPE, so the medical equipment, and solar panels, because the other countries were flooding ours. And we also had a private and public investment, from my understanding, of about $900 billion. So that's where
Correct.
strategic tariffs come in place. The trade balance is a completely made up scenario that we believe needs to be balanced. We're the largest consuming economy in the world. So if we know that, that means we're going to eat more than we plant. The sad part is when you do start your business, the first thing you want to do is try and manufacture in the United States. To have made in America would be such an honor. I flew down to Spartanburg, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, which is the textile capital of the country, and they didn't have nearly close to the capabilities of making it work. And what do I mean? Yes, we can make the non-woven, fine. Do you know somebody that can laminate it? I really don't know. Do you know somebody that could cut and sew at a practical price? No. So this is where manufacturing in these countries that have it down to a science. I order something, there's probably 10, 15 different components that need to be put in place. All I get is a finished product at a price that's respectable. When people think manufacturing overseas, the product is incredibly, people use the word dirt cheap. When you're selling quality product, my products are incredibly expensive when it comes down to the cost of goods itself. And now the cost of goods, at least at the moment, is 245% more than I expected.
Right. And you were talking about Biden's CHIPS Act. We
Yeah.
wanted to develop them here. The biggest fabricator is in Taiwan, and that's one of the big issues that we have between the US and China. Are they ever going to invade Taiwan to take over? Because that is somewhat of the linchpin for all of our AI companies. And so that's where the trillions of dollars in market cap have been shredded between Nvidia, Facebook, Google, Amazon, all these companies, because that's what they rely on. OpenAI, they
Yeah.
just raised $500 billion for Project Stargate with Microsoft, who are their biggest investors, and then CoreWeave just IPO'd for 40 billion, and they were circular. They raised debt to buy from Nvidia. Nvidia invested in them so they get their chips. It's an amazing flywheel of how interconnected all these companies are, and I assume it's somewhat the same with CPG. There's a few major large manufacturers, but as you said, they can do the textiling, they can do lamination, they can do the special boxes. I've watched all these videos. You just can't do that in America. Maybe we probably should have started building first and invested here first. We had a little bit more leverage,
Yeah.
and then we'll see how inflation actually is affected. Who else has to pass along the cost of all these deals for now, right? It's kind of a game of chicken.
Well, we saw the Q4 numbers where, imports was huge because we were
Yes.
all trying to get product in before. I mean, he was saying he was going to do tariffs. So, the companies
Yep.
that would believe what they heard, at least got a little bit of a head start. I have a container on the water right now that was shipped out before, I believe, the date of, April 7th or 9th,
Yes.
which means my products only get the tariffs of 30%. on top of my normal 11.4%. So, that saves me and gives me about 45 to 55 days to figure out where else to manufacture. Spoken to a few American manufacturers just to make sure I wasn't crazy and that it's just simply not possible. At the moment, it's not possible. And
Nope.
imagine, put this through your mind where my product is very simple. It's just we don't have the infrastructure here specifically for that. We have the infrastructure to do amazing things from we do have semiconductors being made here, cars, and then crazy war things, which I'm sure we don't even know what they're building.
Nope.
But when it comes to simple things, you don't want to bring Nike shoes back to the United States, and it's simply just not practical. So, and a lot of it goes back to these giant oligarch corporations. They're the ones that outsourced it. When it went from not
Capitalistic.
helping the worker, it was when it came to shareholder value and profits, right? So I don't know when that changed, but simply not practical to do it here. I'm hoping everything gets ironed out. I'm just sad for some of my Shark Tank buddies that refinanced their home. While they had the momentum, they were doing incredibly well. They just got into Walmart. They knew they could sell the product through. And now, if you order $200,000 worth of product, you have to pay 245% more immediately. So I feel incredibly bad. I believe it's going to be ironed out. So, reach out to your congressperson, your senator if it affects you, but it's going
Yeah.
to affect all of us. I guarantee by Q2, things on the shelves are going to be 10 to 15% more expensive for now.
Yes. And now switching gears into the tech world and startups, how does it affect us, right? It's kind of like a byproduct of the effects of tariffs are kind of dampening the tech world. 2021, as we always say, COVID, 2020, 2021 was awesome, ZERP. No interest rates, anything could raise. We even like to say, right, a pig could fly in a stiff wind. And so it's been a rough few years, no question. We talked about this in our last episode in July of last year, and we've at least come up. That was probably one of the lows of the time in terms of fundraising, not just for founders and startups. AI was still this kind of cool thing. OpenAI didn't really launch their 4.0, 4.5. And now all these cool cursor vibe coding companies are taking off. Apparently, one will be acquired for $3 billion in 5 years. And so that is the hottest thing. I just did like another video showing, right, valuations are coming back up. The big funds have raised tens of billions of dollars. The smaller funds are getting squeezed. LPs, because of the stock market going down, are feeling a little bit poorer because they're high net worths, they're family offices, and they want to be more in wealth preservation mode where these endowments have to spend their money and they can't write checks less than a few $100 million. It's definitely interesting times getting updates from angels, from founders, their startup updates from GPs big and small, and then talking to LPs at institutions and endowments, how they're feeling the squeeze. And the denominator effect was stocks are going down, then venture capital, which is illiquid, becomes a larger portion of their overall portfolio. It is crazy, right? We were just texting that there's been 11 days where the stock market has gone up or down 1,000 points, and 4 of those have been in the last month.
Yeah, no, so it's a mental drain on everyone in every situation. And it's exhausting. But as we've always said in these podcasts, the true entrepreneurs, the true investors will prevail, especially during these hard times. I just had a conversation today with an Indian manufacturer, Bangladesh manufacturer gets my samples tomorrow to see if they can mass produce my products. And as I mentioned, I have a few extra, about a month and a half to figure this out because I do have a container on the ground. But on the other flip side of that, starting a business, I was mentoring somebody today. You could do $250,000 worth of execution for
Yep.
20,000 with the AI and just how simple the barriers of entry of starting a business have been. And it's been the greatest thing that's ever happened to my business is AI. Even like the Chat GPTs of the world, we have AI agents when it comes to customer service, which is incredibly important. Changing the website up. It's really fascinating how much it is a wonderful tool for an entrepreneur. And if you're starting a business now and you're not using AI, just to
You
any
have to.
tiny, you have to. You're going to get left behind. So, pay for Perplexity, pay for ChatGPT and see what other features you can get. But when it comes to SEO, when it comes to grammar, when it comes to content, when it comes to scripts for creating content, when it comes to really
Right?
anything, advertising, it is one of the most brilliant things that's happened to businesses. And so hopefully that could lower operating costs with the new buddy called AI.
Yeah, look, I use it all the time. It's great for research. I have my newsletter. I've done 54 weeks in a row. It helps me ideate. I talk when I'm in the car, I talk to it. And then I'm at the end, I was like, great, turn this into a tweet, a LinkedIn post, give me notes about what we just discussed, go out and search the deep research. Great. It goes and takes a few minutes to go find information that I have to do manually. It's like having an assistant. And definitely here at some point at the end, it was easy just to do transcribing, but I have a few notes in front of me that I can see, and it's looking into the conversations that we're having now and trying to find some data points as well. So, no question, it's changed our world. I can now put together memos, I can do a competitive analysis. The AI today is only limited by our creativity, right? People are still like, oh, look at this prompt, or here's how you can make it better prompt. I had one of our, no, on Twitter, I found hey, I'm an AI therapist, and like, look at all of our conversations because it has memory now. It doesn't
Mm.
forget. It can go through all of our conversations. And it did a whole therapist overview. I was like, wow, that is me. That is 100% true. This is deep and amazing. And so, from all personal and professional, even from a doctor, hey, like, I got a little crink in my neck, or I don't know, I have a headache. What do you think about this? It's amazing.
Yeah, it is beyond. I had some legal thing happen, and I put every single email and contract into an AI platform, and I have rebutted back to whoever the issue was with. I haven't heard
Yep.
back from them, and I haven't heard back from them. So, just make sure you say please and thank you when you're talking to the AI. As Trace mentioned, it has a memory, and from all you know, this is just the beginning, the first inning, maybe even the first out in the first inning of what this AI is going to be capable of.
Yes. And so Sam Altman, co-founder, CEO of OpenAI, said the amount of people saying please and thank you, just saying like millions of times a day, is costing them millions, hundreds of millions in dollars in compute power, just because people are somewhat afraid, right? It will remember at some point. We'll have AGI, sentient, hopefully not Terminator. And so how do we invest in this? From our perspective, between Max and I, we have 70 angel investments. That's what we've done over the last decade. And we've had the social, we've had the database. Now we're in the AI, the agentic world. And so you have these open AIs, you have the Claude, so ChatGPT, Anthropic, Perplexity, and they're all raising literally tens of billions of dollars.
Massive numbers.
And the two people who left as co-founders of OpenAI, Mira just raised 2 billion out of 10 billion. No product, no revenue, nothing. And then Ilya, the other one, just raised 3 billion out of 30 plus billion valuation. Thinking machines and super safe intelligence. Really, really cool names. I mean, I wish I could give them billions of dollars, but those are the foundation layers. What we're looking to invest in is what we call the vertical AI. These are using the foundation layers of the application layer to go after verticals like you,
Mhm.
CPG, direct to consumer, e commerce. How do we use data to help with retention, to do pricing, to keep people on your website, to increase click through, to make ads more relevant? Can you change them on the fly based on what you've purchased?
Yep.
Your browsing history. We know everything about you. Not we, but like the internet doesn't forget. And then you can do defense tech, you can do real estate, you can do B2B enterprise and workflows. Like it's limitless and everybody can kind of build it. The moat is you need someone like him. He is an expert. So when you're building, you need his expertise because he knows the right people, he knows what to ask, he knows what to hear when they say something, and the data. That is one of the biggest moats when you get into a company, you sign a contract and you get all their data that's not public. There's all these massive Fortune 100 companies that have data, but they don't know what to do with it. They can't do it internally. And so you really need to use an outside platform. They have all the SaaS where you give them information, but they don't know what to do with it. You put in, you get out, and then you can't talk to it. You can't interact with it. It doesn't learn. So definitely a whole new paradigm shift that we're in now.
Talking about data, it's probably 3, 4 weeks ago. Somebody was going to acquire 23andMe for pennies on the dollar, and that is some serious data. I mean, that's like DNA type of data.
Yep. I never used it for that exact reason. So they went bankrupt. It wasn't a good business model in the end. They SPACed, obviously. And so they just declined over time. Because how often are you going to use it? Oh, this is really cool. They got the burst of millions of people saying, oh, let me get my DNA. Who am I related to? But they were hoping to sell that data to do trials. But we've seen startups trying to do that just by themselves. it doesn't work. And then it's one time use. How many times can you find out who your ancestors are? But to your point, they are now the largest database of DNA and they're bankrupt. And who does that go to? The highest bidder. Assume that private equity or somebody is going to take it private and use your DNA, which was the big fear of everybody when they started, and it's come true. So I think the government, whatever is left, is trying to block that and make sure that it is safeguarded because that is some crazy data that not just they should use in private equity, but hopefully we'll see if like AI uses it and then they can identify you. It's crazy.
Well, the scary part is you and I didn't do it, but both of our parents did,
Right. And
which means they
so,
know exactly our DNA, right? I'm
right,
sure
at least, yeah.
put it
Well, they
together.
know at least 50-50. They'll be smart enough to kind of combine it all together. So your closest relatives. Yeah, definitely some scary stuff when it comes to what data is available. And then like the hallucinations, right? So maybe it can assume what type of data it has. And so that's another huge issue when we're meeting with these companies and these large corporations. Sometimes it kind of makes it up.
And we'll believe it.
We don't know not to believe it unless it's
You
like
know.
that can't be right. Hopefully you just feed it the data. And a lot of it is analysis of things are just happening faster and faster. And that is the future for now. Valuations are going back up. Hopefully the exits and IPOs will come back, right? So we were fortunate Wiz was acquired. But that was
Yep.
cybersecurity. It was like 5 investors out of Israel. That was amazing. We have some IPOs, but those are kind of on ice right now. So eToro also have Israel. We have StubHub. People are going back to concerts. Klarna coming out of the UK. So a lot of people are filing for IPO. It will hopefully increase once this volatility goes away and we have more clarity. But it's definitely, once again, interesting times out there. And funds are investing, founders. This is always the best time to start a company because everyone's prophesizing there will be $1 billion company with just one, maybe two employees someday. And it's definitely possible. But right now, we're definitely not there.
We're getting closer and closer every day. I'm the only employee now in the United States for my product, for my
Yeah.
business. I used to have 7 employees. There's no longer an office. This is my office. There's
Yep.
no longer, I mean, between software and AI, and outsourcing to some consultants, anyone can start a business now. And we believe we could easily scale the business to 10 million, keeping the same exact overhead. Just maybe an assistant here and there just to keep us sharp and to keep us and make sure we don't miss anything. But
Yep.
it's the best time ever to start a business. All of this will iron out. Everything should be pretty good. But as always, it's a risk and reward. This is a contact sport. I don't know if you could see it. I got a few black eyes and a few scars, but it's persistence and consistency. Venture capitalists are entrepreneurs. Musicians are entrepreneurs. Everyone that is building something bigger than themselves or has to raise money is essentially an entrepreneur. So at this point, I think our dad said something really cool the other day. If you're going to pitch me, make sure you have a royal flush in your hand. So make sure you are incredibly sharp when you are asking for either help or asking for money. Make sure you know most of the things that will get in your way and allow the mentorship and the money just be the catalyst to hop over it sooner.
Yes. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this around it's 4 o'clock today when we started is Tesla earnings just came out. So regardless
Oh,
of
snap.
Elon and what he's doing, he had a double miss, right? So yeah, you can go check. He did 27 cents adjusted estimate was 39, revenue of 19.34 billion when the revenue estimate was 21 billion. So sales fell almost 20% year over year. So it is tough. I mean, look, $20 billion in a quarter, that's one in itself amazing. The company is worth over $1 trillion. Like, we're talking massive numbers. Look, he's working at the government. And does that mean he's away from the company? Like, how does this timing work? But definitely interesting times as we are going to earnings season. So all this tariff talk occurred during Q2. So Q1 was somewhat normal during the kind of new election Trump bump, as we called it. Most of those gains we've lost from the tariffs. But this week, and as we like to say, earnings month, are all the big tech companies. So we'll definitely discuss more of this moving forwards because we'll go through earnings. How have the last month or two affected companies and their revenue. And as we have found over the last year, guidance, right? If you can't guide within a range or even above your guidance, even if you're in range, that's not good enough. We survived COVID and ZERP where you had to do like 30%, which is crazy at these numbers. Now we finally, after years, and the analysts are saying, great, maybe 10, 15, 20% I'll take. But how are you supposed to guide in a world like this? And these are public companies with thousands of employees, billions in revenue, and you're expecting startups to do kind of guidance too. And it's just a few people. So interesting to be in this world constantly, from tariffs to earnings and textiles. It's truly just an interesting time. We're just bombarded with so much information, and one tweet can just set everything off.
Yep. When you start a consumer product business, you need at least a 70% gross margin. And
Right.
imagine overnight that gets sliced in half, if not even more. So you have to raise the price or figure out what else to do or just survive whatever volatility there is until it's ironed out. So, I'm doing all three. I'm finding a new place to manufacture. I'm raising my prices and I'm rooting for this to come to some sane conclusion. Otherwise, you will get left behind, and I feel bad for myself. I feel bad for everyone. And none of this is the consequences of our personal actions. So just control what you can control and, root for whatever, solution can be that benefits more people than not.
Yes, and so kind of in closing, we always tell our founders, and it's kind of like in their family and even in the tech world, like only the paranoid survive. You have to be paranoid. Anything can happen. You have to kind of control the chaos. And so the only kind of optimistic, positive thing I can say will hopefully come out of this is that we shook up the foundation. People maybe got a little comfortable, right? Everything was going up. Okay, great. Things are down. Companies are hurting. The economy is not great. I don't wish this really on anybody, or starting a company on my worst enemies. But hopefully, this will all shake out, regardless of the tariffs and how they affect it. People are now reconsidering their business, their cash flow, their margins, are taking it more seriously. And this is why some of the greatest investments came out of the great financial crisis from like '08 to 12, which is why we want to invest in this vintage. Usually the worst times historically, Buffett, when there's blood in the streets, you buy. And you know what? He's sitting on $300 billion in cash. He owns what, 4.5%, I think I just read, of all treasuries. We're paying him like $120 billion a year, or $120 million just in coupons, right? $80 per taxpayer. He's the GOAT. Hopefully, everybody reconsiders just what they're doing. And maybe if you do the same, that's perfectly fine. But never get comfortable, unfortunately, with business. And you got to keep moving.
Yep. Always stay, whether it's panic mode, but always be in survival mode until you sell your damn business. There's no other way to put it. But it's funny when you said vintage, I'm just thinking wine, right? When somebody's
Yep.
like, oh, 2007 was a good year. And I go, what does that even mean? No, it literally means there was good wind, there was good
Wind,
humidity.
climate. Right. It was a wet season. I
Crazy.
can taste
So,
it. Yes.
the vintage of 2009 tech stocks, and venture capital, that now you think about what was happening during those years that created such tough companies. So stay strong, control what you can control. It's funny when we go over these podcasts, we have the same conversation every single time. Something new continues to pop up. We finally
Yes.
got out of something. We finally had some momentum, and then shabam. But this is where the strongest survive, or the most clever survive. The people that are paranoid survive. Just keep up the good work.
Yep. All right. We'll see everybody again soon. You know where to reach us.
Thank you.